Hi. For my presentation, I'd like to pose the question, is Christianity pseudoscience? As a former Christian, the longer I'm away from it, the more I can see that religion, and specifically Christianity, seem to cause more problems than it solves. Distrust in experts is one of those big problems. I thought I'd start off by defining the difference between science and pseudoscience. Science is a systematic knowledge of the physical or material world gained through observation and experimentation, and it includes, but is not limited to, astronomy, cognitive neuroscience, evolutionary biology, medicine, and geology. Science must be falsifiable and testable, and it is aimed at removing false claims. Pseudoscience, on the other hand, is a system of theories, assumptions, and methods erroneously regarded as scientific, and it includes, but is not limited to, astrology, hollow earth, intelligent design, homeopathy, Christianity, which is the subject of my questions here. Pseudoscience is generally not falsifiable or testable, and it pays no attention to removing false claims. Science is an ongoing process, and it comes from making risky predictions and ruling things out. British philosopher of natural and social science, Karl Popper, said science disconfirms while pseudoscience confirms. This is where I say Christianity is a pseudoscience because it usually has an explanation for most things. Another thing we want to lay down a foundation for is what makes us believe crazy ideas. Michael Shermer, who's a science writer and the founder of the Skeptic Society, in his 2010 TED Talk, The Pattern Behind Self-Deception, he says that as humans, belief is a natural state of things. It is the default option for us. We just believe things. Shermer also says the human brain it likes to find patterns, both meaningless and meaningful. Finding patterns helps us to explain things, and it makes us feel safe. But finding patterns can lead us to faulty reasoning. Unfortunately, when people stop trusting science and experts, they fall prey to claims of pseudoscience. People are trusting patterns and beliefs that are not real, and that's a problem. D.M. Bennett was 19th century America's most outspoken, relentless, and notorious critic of Christianity. He was a former devout Christian. He was a member of the United Society of Believers in Christ's Second Appearing, more commonly known as the Shakers. He founded his periodical, The Truth Seeker, in 1873 at the beginning of the anti-religion campaign in America, and devoted his publication to science, morals, free thought, and human happiness. In 1882, Bennett said, "We honestly believe Christianity to be false, to be the greatest sham in the world, without truth in its history, without loveliness in its doctrines, without benefit to the human race." So that's some serious criticism of Christianity. We also need to figure out why America has such a hard time with Darwin. This phenomenon doesn't happen all over the world. Well, in my research, I found that many early settlers were fleeing religious persecution in England. A great number of them were nonconformist Protestants who treasured their individual relationship with God and felt it was important to read the Bible and take it literally, obviously. The intense faith of the Puritans, Congregationalists, Quakers, Methodists, and Baptists gave the United States its own distinct Christian culture, and they didn't accept evolution as fact. Some of the other places, we struggled with this throughout our history, but one of the major struggles happened in 1925 with the Scopes monkey trial. It was a nationally famous Tennessee court case that upheld a state law banning the teaching of evolution in public schools. Several states, Tennessee was just one of several states to ban teaching evolution. Scopes was convicted. He was a biology teacher in the small town of Dayton, Tennessee, and he disobeyed the law and taught evolution. I started to say he was convicted, but the ruling was quickly overturned. And the fervor over creationism ebbed and flowed throughout history. When we came to another interesting spot with intelligent design in the 90s. And in 2005, a landmark case was decided over the Dover area school district. Their school board they made their biology teachers read a statement that basically equated evolution and intelligent design, and the courts overruled it because they saw through the fact that intelligent design was really creationism in disguise. So we were satisfied for a little while, but now with Trump as president, the debate has been rekindled with his partnership with the religious right. So we're kind of in a little trouble again with that. In my research for this, I stumbled over a 2014 debate between creationist Ken Ham and evolutionist Bill Nye. Ken Ham challenged Bill Nye to a debate after being offended by a YouTube video in which Nye expressed his frustration over so many people's rejection of evolution. Ken Ham is an Australian-born Christian fundamentalist, young earth creationist, and religious apologist living in the United States. He's the founder, CEO, and former president of Answers in Genesis, that operates a creationist apologetic organization that operates the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. Bill Nye, who's also known as the Science Guy, is an American science communicator, television presenter, and mechanical engineer. He's also the CEO of the Planetary Society, a nonprofit space advocacy organization, and obviously an evolutionist. So Ken Ham's position is that his God is the ultimate authority. As a young earth creationist and biblical inerrantist, Ham believes that the book of Genesis is a historical fact. He believes that secularists have hijacked the words science and evolution to impose an anti-God philosophy on unsuspecting school children. Ham also believes in a literal translation of the book of Genesis, which he says proves God formed the earth in 6 24-hour days. The age of the universe is only about 6,000 years. All humans are descendants of Adam and Eve. All living beings were vegetarians until after the earth flooded. The Tower of Babel explains why the world's people speak different languages. There was no disease until after the flood because God created everything that was good, and obviously disease was not good. And this is the worst part. The only infallible dating method is a witness who was there, and that's why the account of Genesis is regarded as true. What goes wrong here is that the creationists have an explanation for everything. All the loose ends are tied up because of what they read into the literal translation, and that just isn't the way science works. Bill Nye's position is that only serious science deniers could fall for Ham's theories. He had many great points to make. Excuse me. These are just a very few of the points he made. If Noah's Ark was real, it would have housed 14,000 animals and enough food to last all of them 1 year. And they only had 8 people on board to take care of all those animals. Gifted shipwrights have done tests on wooden boats that they've created and put them in the ocean. And of course, they cracked and sank after a very short time. So in short, 8 unskilled builders could never have built the ark. This is a silly one, but it's true. If the ark landed in the mountains of the Middle East, where we'd have all those kangaroo fossils and fossils from other animals that live in other places, and how in the world did they ever get to those other places, because they're so far and they'd have to have crossed water. On the age of the earth, there are trees living now that are over 6,800 years old, so that blows the 6,000 year theory. Old Tico, which I think I'm pronouncing right, is a 9,500 year-old Norway spruce in Denmark. And this one I just loved. His thoughts on all creatures being vegetarian. He said, I haven't spent that much time with lions, but I can tell their teeth aren't set up for eating broccoli. Bill Nye, as a scientist, would be happy to be proven wrong, but he would need proof that he's wrong about evolution. Science disproves everything that Ken Ham and his creationists believe to be true. This part is kind of a personal part for me because when Christianity and homeopathy, two things that I think are pseudoscience, meet and become deadly. Dawn Beaver was an adult educator, a co-worker, and a very dear friend of mine. She was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in January of 2019. Against her physician's wishes, she chose to pursue a course of homeopathic treatments. You should really look up the Gerson method. It's ridiculous. It cost her $5,000 and it never cured a single case of cancer. She also included a faith-based position that God will cure me. She said, I will prove that God is real when I'm cured and the glory will be his. But unfortunately, she died within 14 months. And the homeopathic remedies that she chose not only didn't cure her cancer, but the side effects almost killed her before the cancer did. So it's a very sad situation, but it's when pseudoscience really can become deadly. Finally here, science and Christianity, I'm curious if they're even compatible. Evolutionist and atheist Richard Dawkins calls himself an evangelist for truth. I know he's controversial, but he says that before Darwin came along, it was difficult to be an atheist. But after Darwin, Darwin's explanation extinguishes the idea of an original creator. What makes Christianity seem like pseudoscience to me is its very certainty. It's too certain to question anything. Karl Popper said that if you're a scientist, you need to be willing to let your beliefs go. You need to put your beliefs to the test in every way imaginable. If your beliefs can't be tested, they don't have much value. People like Ken Ham think that they have all the answers. They don't. People who take the Bible literally have stopped questioning, and therefore their philosophies can't be compatible with science. I do understand that there are reasonable Christians who believe in science. I think those people can recognize that stories in the Bible are mostly useful to illustrate moral behavior. However, when taken literally, the Bible makes no sense scientifically, and at that point it becomes pseudoscience, which can cause confusion and in the worst cases can seriously harm people. So that's my case. I'm sticking to it. These are my references. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss this subject. I really enjoyed learning more about it. And it really did strengthen my belief that Christianity is pseudoscience. Thank you.